guys notice it more when you're out winning games, right? If Cleveland starts off in a bad start, they're not doing well, and all of a sudden Shedeur or Dillon Gabriel are doing well in 7-on-7. They're throwing dimes. In practice drills, the number one defense can't stop them. People take notice of that, and the more that the players see it, they're gonna then the comments start happening over the lunch table. They start happening throughout the building.
The Browns front office was already giving themselves trophies in their heads, acting like they cracked the code to winning football. Stefanski was getting treated like he invented the sport, and the dog pound was roaring like they finally escaped football heartbreak for good. But then reality grabbed them by the collar, and it wasn't gentle. It was Jason Kelce stepping in like, let me show you what's really happening out here. Kelce, the same dude who spent his career with the Eagles rewriting what an elite lineman looks like, and sometimes popping out in parade outfits like it's nothing, has entered retirement with absolutely no filter. And when he set his eyes on Cleveland, he didn't see some powerhouse rising.
The Cleveland Browns. So they throw Joe Flacco in there, and I like Joe Flacco. He did good, but they gave him the resource of all the first-team guys. Then they throw Dillon Gabriel in there with first teams and second teams. So Dillon always is getting protected. The same thing again, they gave this scrub max protection on every play. Yeah, he completed some passes, but let's talk about his mistakes. He's still inconsistent with his throws.
He saw a franchise trying to fix big problems with dollar store answers and acting like it was genius. He basically lifted up a big flashing sign that screamed, Cleveland, this whole setup is shaky. And normally Cleveland's ownership would brush off something like that without blinking because they're used to hearing wild takes. But this time, this hit different. Jason Kelce isn't some random dude with a podcast or someone yelling into a microphone for attention. This is a Super Bowl champion, a certified veteran, someone who knows exactly what a real, steady organization feels like. So when he says the Browns are one quarterback injury away from the whole thing collapsing, people don't laugh. They pay attention. And when the crowd pays attention, Jimmy Haslam, the billionaire owner of the Browns, starts throwing a fit so dramatic it could win an award. Imagine Haslam pacing around his office stressed out, mumbling about loyalty, while his assistants try to look invisible behind their screens.
Shedeur Sanders in there with the lowest cab drivers you couldn't even get on 5th Street. And I'm pissed off, bro, because the play calling was abysmal. Look, even if you don't like Shedeur didn't even get a chance to be trash. Even if you think Shedeur is garbage, he didn't even get a chance to be garbage. That's how awful the offensive line was. Kevin Stefanski still doesn't want to give Shedeur second strings and first strings reps. Why is that? Now, what's more horrible about this game was...
This is the same owner who locked the entire franchise into that massive $230 million guaranteed deal for Deshaun Watson, only to watch Watson miss games, look shaky when he did return, and leave the team financially tied up like someone trying to escape a bad loan. Kelce didn't say anything wild. He just said the truth. Cleveland hitched their future to a quarterback who hasn't shown top-tier form in a long time, and not even Joe Flacco's surprise playoff magic could hide the long-term storm building behind the scenes. And this is where the comedy hits like a slap, because Browns ownership never gets mad about the mess they created. They get mad when someone finally says it out loud. It's like a magician losing his mind because the crowd figured out the rabbit was hiding in the hat the whole time. Meanwhile, fans weren't angry. They were nodding like, yep, we saw this coming, because Browns fans have a built-in radar for disappointment. They've lived through enough heartbreak to sense trouble before it even arrives, like they're weather forecasters for football chaos. But football is brutal. Defenses get old. Players get hurt.
They wanted to start. He's seasoned. He's experienced. He still has a big-time arm, even at his age. And they open with the Cincinnati Bengals. They wanted that experienced guy. He was always going to be the guy. They were not going to start Dillon Gabriel or Shedeur Sanders in week 1. Kenny Pickett had a hamstring injury. It makes it easy to go with Joe Flacco. And the question isn't and wasn't going to be who's the starter in Cleveland. The question is who's going to be the backup in Cleveland? Who's going to be the number 2 quarterback?
And when your entire future depends on one guy with a contract swallowing the salary cap whole, one injury can send the whole season crashing down. And the AFC North is no soft landing spot. The Ravens got Lamar Jackson, who runs like he unlocked some kind of cheat code and refuses to slow down. The Bengals have Joe Burrow, who could show up taped together and still throw strikes down the field. And the Steelers? They might be a mess sometimes, but they never fold. They just reload and keep rolling with that classic Mike Tomlin toughness. Meanwhile, the Browns are like that kid on the playground who finally learns to tie his shoes, takes one proud step, and still ends up face first in the dirt. It's funny, sad, and painfully on brand. So yeah, Jason Kelce didn't just make a comment, he pressed right on the bruise with perfect precision. He reminded everyone that Cleveland's future doesn't look like a clean road to the Super Bowl. It looks like one of those parking tickets that keep stacking late fees until you can't even breathe. And Haslam hated it, not because it was wrong, but because it was exactly right. When someone like Jason Kelce speaks, the truth doesn't whisper. It roars through the whole league, and Jimmy Haslam has never been known for taking criticism with class.
Our franchise quarterback. I mean, you see the jerseys. I'm tired of seeing the jerseys. I'm tired of the names just going and going and going. I literally thought Brandon Weeden was going to be our guy at one point. And then I'll never forget I think it was a preseason game, a flag goes over his head and he's trying to get out of the.
This is the same owner who turned the Browns into his own test lab, swapping out coaches and quarterbacks like they were cartons of milk that went bad overnight. And now Kelce comes strolling in, pointing out the obvious with a smile. Haslam reportedly went full meltdown, like someone insulted his entire family, instead of just pointing out the truth about his football team. It's wild when you really think about it. A billionaire pacing around, losing sleep over a comment from a retired lineman who doesn't even play in his conference anymore. But the thing is, this was never about Jason Kelce as a person. It was about what he represents. He's the mirror Cleveland refuses to look into. The voice reminding them that Joe Flacco's little Cinderella run was exactly that. A fairy tale waiting to hit midnight with the pumpkin carriage already parked outside. The irony hits hard because the Browns had one of the most chaotic quarterback rooms in the whole league. Deshaun Watson was supposed to be the savior, the chosen one, the superstar, who would change everything.
And I was wrong. We ain't never seen nothing like shit.
I told you. Let's go.
Because when you said that early on, I'm like, what are you talking about? They carried the games in Oklahoma.
Right.
But that was just Oklahoma. That was for Baker. It was like the Oklahoma fan base. They carried the games in Norman, Browns games in Norman. I'm like, that was just as big.
Are you telling me that this is the biggest circus the Browns have ever been a part of?
Yes.
Jay, you not.
Yes.
Wait, because I remember, like, I'm not draft.
I told you.
Instead, he's been injured, inconsistent, and playing like someone still trying to remember where the end zone even is. Then the team called Joe Flacco, only after Watson's season collapsed. And suddenly everyone was wondering if this man found the fountain of youth hidden somewhere in his garage. Flacco stepped in, launched deep passes like it was 2012 again, and made the whole organization look confused by outshining their $230 million investment before he even unpacked his bags. That's not regular embarrassment. That's franchise-level humiliation. It made the Browns look like a team praying nothing goes wrong because one slip, one bad hit, one injury, and everything could fall apart. Even the recent wins had that vibe of smoke and mirrors, like the magic trick only worked if you didn't look too closely. And then Kelce walked in and ripped the curtain straight off, exposing the Wizard of Haslam for what he really is, a billionaire hoping everyone ignores the fact that this whole setup is one sprained ankle away from crashing down. No wonder Haslam was steaming. He's been selling fans a dream, talking about stability, progress, and the Browns finally becoming a real contender. But when someone like Kelce exposes that dream with one comment, it shakes the whole building. And here comes Jason Kelce
for the Cleveland Browns.
How about that?
Friday night in their preseason opener.
I'd be excited, obviously, if I'm a Browns fan. Like the fact that you get to see him, like that's fun. Like if you're a fan of that team, that's fun that you get to see this guy that is this huge polarizing figure, especially coming out of this NFL draft. I wonder if it's kind of a disservice to him, though.
How?
Because he's been the fourth string quarterback. And you're just kind of throwing him in there.
Chilling in retirement, sipping his smoothie like he's on vacation, casually telling the world that Cleveland is still rolling around like a clown car on 4 wobbly wheels. Fans didn't get mad at him. They found it hilarious. They were dropping memes, firing off weird doomed posts, and jokingly thanking Kelce for saying what they've been yelling into their pillows for years. Nothing hits an owner harder than realizing the folks dropping thousands on season tickets agree more with an outsider than with him. Then the media storm rolled in like a tornado. Sports shows ate it up like a holiday feast. Headlines screamed about Cleveland being in crisis, and debates lit up over whether Watson's situation was the biggest mistake the franchise ever made. Even rival fan bases joined the party, laughing from the sidelines. Cleveland can have a top 5 defense, a playoff appearance, and a Coach of the Year winner, and somehow they'll still get treated like a disaster waiting to blow up. And the wildest part, most of the chaos is self-made. Other teams make mistakes. Cleveland makes contracts with theirs. They don't just trip on the sidewalk. They build a whole monument to tripping, cut a ribbon, and call it history.
Couple days, 3 days until roster cutdowns. How do you feel about that? Do you feel like you belong here on this team?
Obviously, I think overall as a player, I feel like I put in the work. I feel like everything I do, you know, I try to do it to my best, and that's all I ask for. So I feel like everybody feels like, you know, they should be on the team, you know, and if you ask anybody on the team, would they feel like they belong, you know, in their own eyes. So I feel like I do, but I'm my own player, you know. I think
that Watson contract wasn't a gamble. It was a full-speed dive straight into uncertainty with every dollar locked in. So when Kelce points out that the team is basically handcuffed by their own decision, of course it stings. The Browns know they're stuck. They can't cut him, they can't trade him, and unless Watson somehow transforms back into his old Houston form, Cleveland is tied to that deal like it's a heavy chain they can't drop. Meanwhile, Joe Flacco popped up like the ghost of Christmas past, showing everybody what clean quarterback play actually looks like. Browns fans didn't know whether to cheer for him or laugh at the absurdity of a 39-year-old walk-in taking the spotlight from the guy making superstar money. It was hype and comedy at the exact same time. The man had barely dropped his suitcase on the floor, and suddenly he was out there looking like the savior of their whole season, while Watson sat on the bench collecting guaranteed millions like it was nothing. That wasn't a fairy tale. That was straight up sitcom energy. And right when things were starting to feel ridiculous, Jason Kelce stepped in and said exactly what everyone else was too scared or too polite to admit. He basically told the world, this team might look shiny on the outside, but the whole foundation is cracked. And that alone was enough to send Jimmy Haslam into a full spiral. Haslam isn't stressed about flaws. Every team in the league has flaws. What really makes him sweat is perception. Billionaires can't stand losing control of the storyline. They want fans believing everything is stable, progress is happening, and that buying another $120 jersey somehow helps build a championship parade. But Jason Kelce bulldozed that illusion in one clean breath. Suddenly, Cleveland didn't look like contenders. They looked like the NFL's version of a reality show where the drama never shuts off. And honestly, that's the funniest part. The Browns can load up talent, catch a hot streak, maybe even slide into the playoffs. But one honest comment from a retired lineman sends the whole franchise stumbling like they forgot how to walk.
If you're a betting man, who do you think starts for the Browns at quarterback?
Okay, this is the situation. Kenny Pickett, they actually traded for him. Joe Flacco, no one's bringing Joe Flacco in the building thinking Joe Flacco is going to be the starter. If Joe Flacco is your starter,
you got a problem.
You have a huge problem. And if they were saying Shedeur was the starter as the 5th rounder, you got a real problem too, because he passed over all these guys in these reps in the offseason in shorts, in bikini shorts, Speedos and stuff. Like, no, that kind of stuff. So I'm not that surprised when you put down a 3rd-round pick on a quarterback.
This stopped being just football a long time ago. It's pride, ego, and the never-ending comedy of a team that keeps tripping over its own shoelaces while claiming everything is perfectly fine. If anyone wants to understand why Jason Kelce's words blew up in Cleveland, all they have to do is look at the facts. This isn't about emotions. It's pure math, contracts, injuries, and the brutal truth of competing in a division where good enough means you're already finished. Watson is either hurt, rusty, or out there playing like someone who accidentally wandered in from a casual flag football league at the Y. And every time fans start to believe he might turn back into that old Houston version of himself, reality pulls the plug and reminds everyone that $230 million guaranteed doesn't buy miracles. It buys pressure, expectations, and a whole lot of questions. It just buys you a front row seat to disappointment, and Cleveland has been sitting in that seat for years. And then there's Joe Flacco, the ultimate plot twist and the funniest punchline in the league. This man was basically retired, probably spending more time choosing lawn fertilizer than studying playbooks, and suddenly he shows up and outplays Watson like it's a warm-up drill. That's not a feel-good story. That's a straight-up warning sign blinking in neon, screaming, "You paid how much for Watson?" Now let's get into the cap space mess, because the Browns don't just have a quarterback issue, they've got a financial chokehold on their future. Watson's deal has them locked up worse than an overzealous TSA agent going through someone's suitcase. Almost a quarter of their entire salary cap is tied to one player who can't stay on the field consistently.
I don't necessarily trust this coaching staff to develop a quarterback or to evaluate the quarterback position. They've made some really oddball decisions at this position over the last several years, and I don't blame anybody for questioning, do these guys actually know what they're doing?
I don't think that's unfair at all. The thing I would say is that they're desperate. They're very desperate. Like the entire organization is desperate. And if you really think they're going back to the coaches' offices and all getting around the table after sessions and being like, guys, Shedeur is unbelievable, but I really think we should try to...
With that kind of load, the Browns are stuck patching up holes with duct tape instead of building real depth, the kind you need to even breathe in, the AFC North. And speaking of the AFC North, good luck, Cleveland, because this division is anything but friendly. This isn't a quiet neighborhood where everybody's mediocre and you can sleepwalk into first place. This is full-blown NFL Hunger Games, and only the toughest make it out alive. The Ravens have Lamar Jackson running around like he's starring in a video game, Mark Andrews snagging passes like he's wearing magnets, and a defense that makes quarterbacks rethink their life choices. The Bengals, they've got Joe Burrow, who looks like he could throw touchdowns blindfolded with one hand tied behind his back. And even the Steelers, who can't figure out their own quarterback situation, still end up with 9 or 10 wins every year because Mike Tomlin simply refuses to let that team fall apart.
Given what we saw yesterday with Shedeur Sanders, somebody on the Cleveland Browns is 100% getting fired, probably by the end of this year. The person who's probably going to end up getting fired is Kevin Stefanski, because I know that he didn't want Shedeur Sanders on the team. It was Andrew Berry who made that pick. You can't really go against your GM. Bad things happen in this situation. But Shedeur Sanders is not without fault for what we saw yesterday. This is the play that we saw yesterday that has the internet just exploding, where Shedeur Sanders took like a 24-yard sack.
So where does that leave the Browns? Exactly where Jason Kelce said, in trouble. They look like the guy who walks into a heavyweight fight wearing floaties and hoping nobody notices. Sure, their defense was elite last season, but no defense stays dominant year after year without real support, real depth, and real stability. That's exactly what Cleveland doesn't have right now, and everyone sees it except the people running the show. Injuries stack up, players get older, coordinators bounce for new jobs, and suddenly that once dominant defense starts looking regular again. And when that happens, the pressure snaps right back onto the offense. And right now, that offense is locked down by a contract so wild it should be taught in economics classes as a warning. The Browns medical staff probably feels like they're running an emergency ward instead of a sports facility. And here's the funny part. Jason Kelce didn't expose some deep secret hidden in a vault. He just said out loud what every Browns fan mutters under their breath after hearing the third injury update of the week. This team is one bad break away from falling apart. And knowing Cleveland's luck, that break is practically scheduled in advance.
Right, because this is the greatest resurrection since Jesus the Christ. Right, like at some point, Joe Flacco was thinking about getting into TV.
Yeah.
Right, Joe Flacco didn't have a job, and then now you not only come back and start for the Cleveland Browns late in the 2023 season, but they came back around to you, and you're now the day one starter for a franchise that just 2 years ago was in the playoffs.
Where now Tyler Huntley would be, right behind Flacco. They need to take Flacco and just put him away, get him ready for the Cincinnati Bengals. Like, don't even worry.
Put him in the cryo chamber that Bobby Carpenter sleeps in every night.
Yeah, does not need to play at all. Barely practice because they're having to sign now another quarterback. And keep in mind, they already have...
The fans know it. The rivals know it. Everyone sees the danger signs. Yes, the Browns have stars on defense, playmakers on offense, and a coaching staff that, for now, seems to have things under control. But paper doesn't win games in the AFC North. Reality does. And reality says you need a steady quarterback, cap room to maneuver, and enough durability to survive heavyweight matchups with Baltimore, Cincinnati, and Pittsburgh. Cleveland has none of that. And Jimmy Haslam can fume all he wants, but he can't dodge those facts. He can pump out press releases, smile for the cameras, and spin all the trust the process energy he wants. But the math doesn't change. The division isn't getting easier. The contract isn't disappearing. And the Browns, no matter how shiny they look during Joe Flacco's surprise comeback spark, are still staring straight at the mess they created. So yeah, Cleveland, Jason Kelce didn't lie. He called it exactly how he saw it, and judging by the receipts, he wasn't wrong one bit. If you enjoyed this breakdown, make sure to like, subscribe, share, and I'll see you on the next one.